Oh my God, he's so cooked. He's like, I'm a loser, but I promise I won't actually have a negative consequence on the ticket. I know I'm a loser. I know my place. I'm sorry.
Begin with the growing backlash from the remarks by former President Trump during his appearance before a group of black journalists. He questioned the racial identity of Vice President Kamala Harris and was at times combative with the women who asked him questions. Robert Costa has more from Washington. Bob, good morning.
Good morning. The comments were part of a tense Q&A in Chicago at the National Association of Black Journalists, a conference. Former President Trump courted black voters and courted controversy as he brought questions of race to the fore of this campaign.
I have been the best president for the black population since Abraham Lincoln.
In a crowd full of black journalists, former President Donald Trump clashed with reporters as he questioned his rival's racial identity.
Do you believe that Vice President Kamala Harris is only on the ticket because she is a black woman?
Well, I can say no, I think it's maybe a little bit different. She was always of Indian heritage, and she was only promoting Indian heritage. I didn't know she was black until a number of years ago when she happened to turn black, and now she wants to be known as black. So I don't know, is she Indian or is she black? She was Indian all the way, and then all of a sudden she made a turn and she became a black person.
Just to be clear, sir, do you believe that
I think somebody should look into that too.
Vice President Kamala Harris, whose father is Jamaican and mother was Indian, went to the prestigious historically black college Howard University and is a member of the oldest black sorority, Alpha Kappa Alpha. She responded last night.
And it was the same old show. The divisiveness and the disrespect.
Harris was speaking in Houston at a black sorority event.
Let me just say, the American people deserve better. The American people deserve a leader who tells the truth, a leader who does not respond with hostility.
Hasan was Turkish all the way, then suddenly turned white. Ironic you say that because that's how, like, all of my racist haters say that shit. Like, that is exactly what my racist ass haters say. They're like, oh, Hasan was Turkish when it suits him, but he's white when it suits him, when he wants to be racist against white people. Also, he's Muslim. He's a sand N-word and therefore not real white. Are you kidding me? Ha, white, I laugh at that. He is not German. He is not Polish. Those are the real whites. Yeah, I remember even the supposed libs saying that. Supposed libs. Supposed being the operative word here.
Hostility and anger when confronted with the facts.
At a rally in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, I do love personally that, like, the Republicans who have been getting yelled at for being weird and have not been doing a very, very good job of, like, dealing with that reality have decided to double, triple, quadruple down on the weird shit and have just been balls to the wall. Like, I love that, like, the media cycle was going to change when Donald Trump went and talked to the National Association of Black Journalists. And the first talking point that came out of it was Kamala Harris might be a DEI pick. Also, she's an Indian woman and not black. She's switching races to be black. Real cool stuff. Thank you, guys. No, you're doing a great job, man. Yeah, no, she turned black. It's just like, dude, I mean, this is like kind of a weird tweet. Obviously, this is Kamala Harris at Howard, but like, bro, it's a thing that you can visibly see with your eyes. That's why it's so strange that they're running with this narrative. Like, she is a black woman, okay? She is seen as a black woman by both racists and non-racists alike. So the fact that, like, you would try to do that, like, this isn't Bobby biracial, okay? This isn't logic. Like, this is a black woman. I'm so confused that they're trying to make it seem like it's like a racial Dolezal situation. Like, it's very weird. This is dead ass the Obama birthrightism all over again, just 16 years later is nuts. It's even weirder than that, I think. Like, obviously, that was like gross, weird, racist in general. And it also was demonstrably a failure. In terms of messaging, that was not a successful message at all. Obama won twice and is still seen as like a very popular figure. Oh my God, JD Vance is Indian. We got him. Like, Donald Trump, she has always been black, classic black family photo. Donald Trump posted this, by the way, this family photo earlier today, and was like, remember when Kamala Harris was acting like she was an Indian woman? And it's like, bro, she's literally both black and Indian. These two things can happen. Why are these guys acting like this is shocking? It's so strange, man. Like there is no rule. There is no rule in the rule book where you're just like, oh, if you're biracial, you got to pick one. Sorry. What the especially in terms of blackness. Like if she was white, if she had white in her, that's a little different, right? If she's half white, then the equation is a little bit different, because whiteness, also a social construct, is proximity to power in a white country like the United States of America, right? Like that's why you can't hit her with the Elizabeth Warren style memes, because like Elizabeth Warren was a white woman who claimed to be a Native American woman. That's why everybody made fun of her, myself included. But Kamala Harris literally is a black woman, and blackness is the type of trait in an unimaginably white supremacist society. Blackness is the type of trait that you just can't really avoid, unlike the top of the hour ad break, which you can avoid as long as you subscribe for $6 or for free. You can be black, you can be Indian, you can be Blasian, don't matter. You can be white. You can avoid the top of the hour ad break as long as you subscribe for $6 or for free with a Twitch Prime by connecting your Amazon Prime account to your Twitch account. Here's the 3-minute ad break now. Anyway, let's continue. JD Vance's reaction to Trump's comments about Harris's race. What he said, I thought it was hysterical. I think he pointed out the fundamental chameleon-like nature of Kamala Harris. Donald Trump on whether Kamala Harris is a DI hire, as some Republicans have said. She happened to turn black. She was Indian all the way, and all of a sudden she made a turn and she became a black woman. Now, JD Vance saying this is extra weird because, as Roger Sullenberger points out, he has mixed race children. His kids are half Indian and half white. So that's extra strange. Racism isn't about proximity to power. Racism occurs regardless of power. Read How to Be an Anti-Racist. Racism occurs regardless of power. Dude, I don't know what the you're talking about here. Okay, this isn't like the basic racism is power plus discrimination or whatever. I'm not even saying that right now. I'm simply saying whiteness is about proximity to power. Okay, whiteness. It's not race that's the issue. It's the changing racial identity for political reasons. Oh no. What? Okay. There's no such thing as being biracial. It's just some other race. Black plus white equals Arab. Chinese plus Indian equals Mexican. That's how it works. Kamala Harris is Sentinelese. Yeah, it's like when you mix these two things, you get a third new thing. This is a joke, by the way, chatters. This person is not being serious. It's funny how hard it is for you Americans to understand the cultural inheritance of people when your country is mainly constituted by migrants. I mean, it is, but it's also dictated by white supremacy. This is a byproduct of that reality. Oh my God, the hits keep coming. New audio, Trump's VP, what is this? Nominee JD Vance calls rape and incest inconvenient. Wait, what? I'm not going to look at the Google Doc link. Anyway, these racial dynamics being a hot button discourse is probably going to be off-putting to normal people who are like, what the is going on? I don't really care about this at all.
Wednesday night, Trump continued to attack Harris, but made no mention of her race.
This November, the American people are going to reject Kamala Harris's dangerous liberal extremism in a massive landslide.
Earlier in the day, Trump also defended his VP pick, JD Vance, who's faced backlash for his comments on people without children. But Trump did say a running mate doesn't matter all that much.
Except he had previously said, I'm pretty sure he previously had said, a running mate usually doesn't matter, except in this case it does.
Presidential politics.
Historically, the choice of a vice president makes no difference. You're voting for the president. You're voting for me. If you like me, I'm going to win.
The White House has called Trump's statements about Harris repulsive and
That's cool, man. That's a really good way to defend. That's a really good way to defend your your running mate that's supposed to give you a nice little bump. Admitting that your running mate sucks weeks after you chose him is so funny. Hello, I'm Hasan. Oh, come on. Don't block that guy. For your break, you know what community they come from? I know what community they came from. For your break, come on, dude. Come on. Yeah, we know exactly where he's coming from. All right, let's continue. Conservatives, including my dad, are pointing to these two AP headlines of evidence as flip-flopping her race, which is so insane they cannot fathom the concept of carrying two identities. Yeah, I know. California's Kamala Harris becomes the first Indian American U.S. Senator. She would not become the first Black American U.S. Senator. So that's why that's the headline. Biden picks Kamala Harris as running mate, first Black woman. That article probably also mentions that she's the first Indian woman as well. I don't know why we're having this conversation. It literally feels like every day, and this is why I spent approximately like 2.5 hours talking about the trans panic that took place earlier in the morning. Okay? Because every day we stray further and further into psychopathic tendencies. We are becoming literally more insane every moment. And a big chunk of that insanity is unironically coming from the unrestricted, unshackled right-wing sentiment born out of made-up hysteria and panic. So much of the discourse is driven by dudes who are straight up hallucinating. Okay? So much of this discourse, like for the entire morning lineup, for not just me, but for most of the major outlets, was talking about how a cis woman, okay, for a cis woman from Algeria, a country that is not exactly fond of LGBTQ people, okay, a cis woman from Algeria won a gold medal in boxing, and people just decided that she's trans. She's not, but people just decided anyway to be transphobic. And you could not convince motherfuckers that this was not the reality, right? Like that this was, oh, she didn't win gold. Sorry, she just won one fight in her first match. It is actually crazy that this person, it is actually crazy that this became the genuine discourse. And there are probably right now hundreds of thousands of people that are right-wing, if not millions of people that are right-wing, that saw the Fox News coverage, saw all the articles, saw shit on Twitter that straight up are like, no, that's a trans woman and therefore a man. And I will never be convinced otherwise. Just completely untrue. Completely untrue. Think about that. And it's the same shit here. People just straight up go, you can't be both Black and Indian. You got to pick one. And most people understand how this works, but it doesn't even matter.
Insulting. Trump and his campaign have stood by what he said. And when I was in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania last night at Trump's rally, it was evident his voters do too. Many of them, in conversations with me, echoed his assessment of Vice President Harris, highlighting just how rough and racially charged this campaign is shaping up to be. Major.
Robert Costa, thank you so very much. Joining us now, CBS News political contributor Ashley Etienne. She formerly worked as Vice President Harris's communications director. Ashley, good morning. You know the challenge of any national campaign and candidate is to be prepared for the toughest broadsides that might come from an opponent. Rate Kamala Harris's response last night.
Listen, I thought it was a strong response. I mean, what I'm hearing from the campaign is she's going to continue to rise above the fray. That is the best way they think that they can contrast with someone like Donald Trump, that she's going to keep making this point that this election is about the past versus the future. No one wants to go back to a past, the Trump years where racial violence was at an all-time high, where you had the president say that there are good people on both sides. The former president called on the Proud Boys to stand by. So she's going to continue to make that point, that that's not who we are as America. That's not who we want to be. And the American people are rallying behind her in unprecedented ways. $200 million she's raised in a little more than a year. Over 100,000 people have signed up.
What?
These should get their own category. Because before, if a man hit a woman, it used to land him in jail. Now, it gets you a gold medal at the Olympics. These are the worst Olympics in history. They have made a mockery out of Christianity and women. And let me remind you, there's no such thing as...
Bro, this person is running for... Wasn't she running for Congress? Christ is King, MAGA, America First, Missouri's 41st Secretary of State. 54,000 likes. Same vibe. This is a glimpse into next year's politics. They're going to drop the N-word next. Oh, yeah. I'm in awe of the fact that this person is like actually running for office right now as we speak. Like, this is her campaigning.
It's a chick with a dick. Keep women's sports female. The same woke virus that killed Elon. The same woke virus that killed your son Xavier just killed Angela Carini's dreams at the Olympics. I don't need your money. I want your help saving the children from this virus that is mutilating our youth.
Like, I think she needs to be in, I think, honestly, re-education camps, like 100%. Like, how can you look at this and not think, like, we have to rehabilitate these people? Like, actually, dude, come on. What are we doing? Yeah, isn't she running in Missouri? Yeah, but it doesn't matter. Like, dude, this level of vitriol is not going to translate well to, like, even Missourian voters, okay? I think a lot of you guys like think, oh, they're all dumb hicks down there or whatever. And sure, there's plenty, but like, nah.
And destroying families. There is no such thing as a trans child. We must protect the children's innocence from the groomers and pedophiles that pry on them.
As a Missourian, I think you are too forgiving. No, I don't believe that like normal Americans think this level of like unshackled, unrestricted vitriol is actually good and beneficial for a campaign. You want to know why I don't think that? Because if that was the case, then Republicans would not have actively tried to campaign with dog whistles for decades. These guys are too invested in smelling their own farts. And they think that other people think like them. You get to this point, they don't. Just look at Carrie Lake. Exactly. I'm telling you, dude, when you get to this level, it's like, you know what these guys are? Obviously, there's no moral equivalent between the two. But these guys are like, the leftist version of these guys are people who come in here and they're like, oh, dude, you haven't started a revolutionary vanguard party and armed militants in the global south? Like, you're an idiot. Like, these are people who think that, like, me living in the United States of America am like allowed to be a certain way. Like they greatly overestimate how much real momentum their belief system has on the planet. Okay? They do not live in the real world. You can only arrive at that way of thinking if you're just like exclusively in Discord servers and you just like never interact with a real human being. And for these guys, it's basically the other side of the equation, but significantly worse, far more consequential, and nationalized at this point. You know what I mean? Like, it's so incredibly out of touch, and forgetting that like you need to do dog whistles. Like, you can't behave like this. You look like a cultist. You look sweaty. You look nervous. You look weird to the average person. Discord servers are the most racist dive bars in town. No, these guys are just like hopped up on Twitter fumes, and they genuinely think that like there is a large enough group in the country beyond the actual MAGA cultists, that actually operate like this. When in fact, in the real world, if someone were to talk like this, if she were to do this in public, people would be like, what the f are you saying, bro? Chill out. If she chirped like this in public, someone would beat her ass. 100%.
These should get their own category.
If she said this in public around other people, someone would smack the shit out of her. 100%. Like 100%. Someone would be like, what the f did you just say? Like straight up. Like you have to remember that. And the person doing that wouldn't necessarily be like an ally to trans people or anything like that. Like I'm saying, like a normal person walking by, if they heard another human being talk like this in broad daylight in public, there would be some words exchanged, maybe even hands. Straight up. Now, the reason why I'm saying that, no, even in Missouri, dude, even in Missouri, the reason why I'm saying that is not because I think that, you know, I'm threatening this person with violence or whatever. I'm saying like it's not the norm to behave like this. It's not the norm to behave like this at all. This is gross shit. Okay? What is this? Not her, but similar video?
We bring back normalizing the word we need to shame again. We need to put them back in the closet. I miss those days when people wouldn't tell anyone that they're gay because it was not celebrated. Now it's like people are becoming gay because they want to be celebrated. They're weird. They're outcasts. They just want to.
This doesn't work because like some gay guy's going to use this as a reaction video in less than 24 hours. Yeah. Censored TV. Don't laugh, buddy. How am I not going to laugh at this? This is so obviously reaching to just like get a reaction. It's pathetic. Straight up. A lot of people feel this way too. I love you so much, Hasan, but I think you're being way too charitable. No, dude. I'm not saying the average American isn't homophobic, transphobic, racist. You're misunderstanding you're misunderstanding my point, okay? I have never made the argument that like the average American is not like a genuinely racist, homophobic person. There's a shit ton of genuinely racist and homophobic people. They just don't like it when someone else who's on their side is just giving the game away. There's a difference between acceptable racism that they have learned from social conditioning, stereotypes in media, and every aspect of society that they've grown up with, especially when they're sheltered, okay, versus behaving like an edgy teenager in an Xbox Live chat room. When you get to the edgy teenager phase, most people who are literally racist and homophobic themselves go, ew. At the very least, they will go, ugh, gross. I don't with that gay shit either, but that's weird. You're being a little weird. That's what the average person who would otherwise be homophobic or transphobic would think, okay? And would operate like. If you were out in the real world, you would understand that. There's a level of like social acceptability that you need to abide by. That's why Ben Shapiro always uses dog whistles. He always just points to things, right? He always points to the way that these structures are designed. He rarely ever goes, black people are genetically inferior and that's why they must be murdered by the police. He says policing as an institution is necessary and there are a lot of crimes that occur as a byproduct of the culture that black people have. That's it. That's the difference. One is taking advantage of the unjustifiable structures that we exist under that people take for granted and people think are the norm and should not change. The other is just giving the game away and being like, no, actually, I am a racist in the way that other racists understand, in the way that like people are not comfortable with openly being. Racist people don't like being called racist. Klansmen don't like being called racist. Okay? Nazis don't like being called Nazis because everybody understands that being outwardly racist like that is truly toxic. Okay? It's because you're breaking like the social boundaries. Some people take pride in it though. Yes, dude, but those people are incredibly marginal. Like they are so minuscule.
Let's dive into this.
So tiny in terms of the population.
Your granddaughter did an amazing job. She's a great golfer. We met her, I think, up at Bedminster.
Here's Donald Trump talking to Clay Travis and Buck Sexton. Funniest name of all time, by the way, Buck Sexton. Talking about the athlete that Trump, I suspect, will call trans.
With you, and you took her out on the course. I know you've been playing with her a great deal. Before we get into the Olympics in particular, if you found out that she was going to have to compete against men in golf, you know the difference. There's ladies' tees for a reason. There's a tremendous difference. What would you say as a grandfather, leaving aside the being a president, running for president, all of those things, what would you say, you're a big sports fan, just about being fair if you found out that your supremely talented golfing granddaughter was having to compete against?
I hate that, like, transphobic people are completely in the wrong here, and they've just, like, hallucinated that the cis woman is a trans woman, and they're still doubling down on the narrative regardless, you know? They're still just like, even if she's not trans, who gives a fuck? Trans people. That's basically what this argument is.
Well, golf is different. It's first.
What about the they say what I think people? I heard that about Trump all the time working at a gas station. Great take. That's the other thing I was going to say. Republicans legitimately think in their minds that everyone else thinks like that. That's why there's always this narrative of like, oh, he's just honest. This is exactly what everyone is thinking, but are too afraid to say it. No, motherfucker. It's not to that degree, okay? And even then, oh, people are too afraid to say these things, but they're thinking it, means that they're still not saying it because they understand ultimately that there's a massive subsect of the population that consider that to be abhorrent. Hello, that's the whole point.
First of all, it's a huge disadvantage anyway, but golf is a lot different than being punched in the face like that young lady from Italy was today, where she took 2 shots and she said, I'm out of here. I never got hit like that before in my life. And she was supposed to be a very good boxer, but she said, this is crazy. But golf's a little, because you still have to be able to putt and other things. But even in golf, you know, there's a big difference in distance. That's why, as you said, better than anybody. That's why they have the ladies' tees and the men's tees and all of that. So obviously it's, you know, a big part of what I say. One of the things that gets the biggest applause, just about, and it's I have other things that are very important, like the border. We got to close the wall. You got to drill, baby, drill, all of that. But one of the things that gets the biggest applause, and you know this because you've been to many of the rallies. I had a great one in Harrisburg.
Yeah, this is a great way to, again, smell your own goddamn farts, okay? Even he has been, like, shocked at how much people love the anti-trans sentiment at his rallies. But those are motherfuckers at his rallies. That is not the broader, electorate, okay? These are, it doesn't mean anything other than the fact that your fan base is brain broken, okay? If you lean into that too much, you are going to end up looking like a freak, which is why a lot of people, which is why the Republicans are weird narrative has been salient.
Last night, it was unbelievable, actually. And what gets the biggest applause is we will not allow men to play in women's sports. And, you know, I usually use weightlifting as a good example. You could use swimming. You could use a lot of different, but weightlifting is so good. But I think it's been replaced by boxing because this young lady said, I've never been hit like that. It was like getting hit by a horse. So, I mean, she took 2 punches and she said, that's it. I'm out.
What do you think about Kamala Harris? It's incredibly coincidental because today Kamala Harris and Joe Biden have rewritten Title IX so that it now includes gender identity. So if a man wants to identify as a woman, as you just mentioned, that thing has gone viral. Everybody is reacting to it. They wouldn't let that person fight as a woman because it didn't fulfill the biological requirements. Man beats up a woman in the Olympics. What did you think when you saw that video?
Well, this is where they've been. They've gone, you know, into the whole thing with men can do anything they want. They can go into the locker rooms. They can do whatever they want. They transition. And that's where they've been. And people don't understand it. To me, you know, I say we run a campaign on common sense. The Republican Party and MAGA is.
That's why the weird narrative sticks so well, because Republicans do really well when they talk about common sense. This is just common sense. Of course, we have to look. The other side is crazy. They want to kill cops. We're just like the common sense party. Of course, you love cops. You see it in television. That's when the Republican Party actually is doing well campaigning, because regardless of my own personal opinion, my convictions, and what I say and what this community thinks, policing as an institution is unimaginably popular in this country. Okay? Straight up. That's just the reality. Okay? So there's a difference between, and obviously that changes for different demographics, especially when we're talking about voters. But when you say common sense, this is common sense. Of course we need cops, and the other side wants to like kill cops or abolish the police or whatever. That's a pretty sticky narrative that you can run on that is decently successful in terms of campaigning. But when you just like hyper focus on like weird shit and constantly talk about like women and teenagers' genitalia or shit like that, even though obviously focus group testing has shown that transphobia in and of itself is not successful, but when paired up with the concept of fairness in sports, it's actually very successful. And that's the reason why they changed it from bathroom bills to like, trans teens in sports or whatever. Even then, not enough people care about it because at the end of the day, there aren't that many trans people. There's just not. It's like an entirely marginal group of individuals. So consistently talking about trans people all the time, nonstop, trans people this, trans people that, they're in every corner, is going to make you look weird and gross. Ultimately, the average American also doesn't really care about women's sports that much. And especially the people that are talking about trans women competing in women's sports. They definitely don't give a about women's sports. We are half of your audience. I'm scared. I'm like actually so anxious as a trans person watching this. We are half your audience. I wouldn't say trans people are half my audience, but I do have a big percentage of trans people in this community for sure. Thanks for your talking points. I just destroyed a transphobic family member of mine, Lamont. They were yapping about this nonstop. Even though they're obsessed with trans people, is what he's saying doesn't make sense. What? No, dude. Americans care about inflation, okay? And maybe some of them also are terrified of the border because it's a narrative that has no counter messaging to it. But at the end of the day, when you're constantly talking about like teenagers' genitals and how they're being chopped off or whatever, people are going to be like, dude, that is weird. I don't want to think about that. Please shut the fuck up. Like, think about it this way. Conservatives are so dialed into culture war panics that they negatively polarize themselves against being normal. One of the greatest indications of this was during the Super Bowl. This is supposed to be the Super Bowl for conservatives, right? It's something that every American is supposed to celebrate. All the normal Americans watch it, right? Hundreds of millions of people tuning in from all around the world even, but especially in America. And conservatives were crying. Why? Because Taylor Swift is there. Why? Because Taylor Swift's boyfriend is playing. And they weirdly just they weirdly turned around and negatively polarized themselves against normal shit, okay? And when you're chirping about the Super Bowl, you think the average American is going to be like, hell yeah, you're right, brother. Taylor Swift is actually a government psyop made to trans children. And that's why I'm also boycotting the Super Bowl. No, they're going to be like, shut the fuck up. I'm eating jalapeno poppers and watching the Super Bowl, you un-American piece of shit, okay? Like, you think right now at this election cycle, like when these dumb talk about like Dylan Mulvaney being on a goddamn Bud Light beer can, you think that shit is like salient as a talking point? You think people give a fuck about that? No, of course not. And it's the same exact story with the Olympics, okay? This is a global event. A third of the entire population of the planet watches the goddamn introduction ceremony. Conservatives in America are crying about how gay the Olympics are and how anti-Christian the Olympics are. Most people all around the globe are just watching and going, okay, the French are being weird. Who gives a okay? What are we doing? They can't even enjoy the Olympics without getting angry, okay? That is a mentally unwell person. I'm trans. Do you really think the majority of America isn't transphobic? What? Where are you getting this from? I never said that. Of course. No, transphobia is deeply associated with our rigid understanding, our false understanding of gender. People don't see it as a social construct at all. They think it's like biology. They don't understand that there's a difference between biology or whatever people call biological gender versus being trans or gender expression in general, or what gender is in general. That's number one. And number two, because of that close association we have with our identity and the rigidness in which we have been taught from an early on age, people are obviously like, oh, trans people are weird and gross for the most part. That is like the normative position. That is the broad position of the majority of Americans, the overwhelming majority of Americans, right? They don't make a distinction between sex and gender, and it doesn't even matter. Most people think, oh yeah, trans people are kind of weird, kind of gross. I don't get it, okay? The difference, however, is that no normal person is constantly thinking about the latest and greatest in the happenings of trans culture and trans community existence. Okay? That's my argument. The average American is not constantly thinking about like what a trans influencer is doing. The average American doesn't have like, anti-trans memes on their phone where they go, see, this is I have 500 videos of trans people screeching on my video. I'm on my phone. I'll show it to you right now. Like when you do that, people go, brother, what's that, brother? That's what they say. They're like, dude, you're weird. Caring about something that much, no matter what the cause is going to be off-putting regardless. Okay? Love you, King, but I think your idea of the average American normie is influenced by your friends and environment. WeHo normies are more chilled than Alabama normies, in my opinion. Oh my God. No. Not only are you wrong, you are demonstrably wrong, because running an anti-trans agenda is exactly what led to the 2022 electoral defeat for many Republicans when it was supposed to be a red wave. Okay? That's it. These guys already tried this shit. Okay? And there are exit polls. People were literally polled on this, where they asked them, like, how big of a factor in your consideration was, like, the fact that trans people are taking over the country or whatever. And people were just like, what? I don't understand. I don't care. That was abortion. It wasn't just abortion. Okay. Abortion played a big role in it, certainly. But some might make the argument that abortion is also a continuation of the Republican radicalization in this country, and how genuinely off-putting that looks to the average person. You feel me? Normal transphobes don't obsess over trans people. Yeah, it's not an oxymoron. Yes, there are plenty of people who are just normal and are like transphobic in the sense that they will be like, yeah, I don't think men should play against women. I don't think trans women should play against cis women, right? Like there are so many people who believe that and will just regurgitate that. Okay, that's an uncontested narrative. It's very difficult to fight back against that. That is just the average person's take. That's it. But it doesn't go beyond that. Okay, when you start pushing arguments about how, like, and that's why we have to stop them, and that's why we have to pass a legislation that will impact only 3 trans girls in high school swim meets in the entire state of Kansas. Okay, when you do that, people are like, what? Okay, what the why are we doing this? We are extremely online. We are motivated by what we see online. And unfortunately for us, especially with Twitter becoming increasingly more right-wing, most of the things we see are from groypers. So we literally personally think that like every American is like a groyper. And that is exactly the problem with the Republican Party. They think that. They think that they're normal. They are not normal. They are weird and off-putting to the normal person. Okay?
Is about common sense probably more than it is about being conservative or anything else. It's common sense. We want to have a strong border. We want to have low taxes. We want to have good education. We don't want to have men playing in women's sports. But this is where they are. The whole party is crazy. And they took him out. They did a coup with him. And it wasn't a friendly coup. It was a vicious coup. You know, he had all the votes, and they just said, we'll do it the easy way or the hard way. And they took him out. You know, from my standpoint, here we are working against him. He's down for the count practically. And it's like if you had a fighter like Dana White, the great Dana White. You have a fighter, and he's not doing well, and you take him out, you put somebody else in. But I don't think she's going to do well because her policies are so bad. I mean, she wants open borders. She wants the all-electric cars in a very short period of time. No more gasoline-powered cars or hybrids or any of that. It's just ridiculous. The country looks so stupid to the rest of the world.
When you hear yourself and J.D. Vance called weird by Kamala Harris, who believes that a man should be able to win a women's boxing championship, that a man should be able to be a women's swimming champion. We had Riley Gaines on the show earlier. Who's the weirdo there? What's weird? Actually letting men pretend to be women and win?
You are, bro. You are, for thinking about this and talking about this nonstop. You are the weirdo. Like, you're weird.
Championships, or just saying women's sports should be played by women?
Well, they're the weird ones. And if you've ever seen her with the laugh and everything else, that's a weird deal going on there. They're the weird ones. Nobody's ever called me weird. I'm a lot of things, but weird I'm not. And I'm up front.
Oh, he's mad. Oh, that's awesome. Yet another, put that in the W category. Put that in the W column once again. Okay. It's just not, there you go. He is definitely big mad about this shit.
And he's not either, I will tell you. JD is not at all. They are. I mean, who wants to have open borders? We're prisoners. That's weird. We're prisoners and we're
That's weird. No, it's the other side. Here, I want to give you guys another argument. I want to go back to this psycho.
Now?
Okay? The psycho who's like said this, right? How much you want to bet every single person with a blue check mark that's responding to this person is like incredibly griped up and most likely one of those like Orange County style of Republicans, like Republican in a deep blue area, Republican living in a deep blue district, Republican living in a deep blue state. Okay? Every single blue check mark. The take we're all waiting for. Host of Brianna M. Show, corporate media escapee, quit Fox Corps over the COVID vaccine mandate, fluent in sarcasm. Okay? Missouri, you better vote for this woman. First Amendment, Second Amendment, America First, MAGA conservative. Holy shit, I love you. America First. Adaptation expert, natural selection always prevails. Gen X, father, teach your son chivalry. Think long, think wrong. Traditional thoughts. The truth, no matter how harsh it comes across, is still the truth. First time there's a Missourian in the post. There are derogatory words for every race, religion, class, sex, etc., etc. I don't try to use any of them, and I expect politicians to do the same. As a Missourian, this post lost me. Look at the top blue check on this one. Israel has you leashed like a dog. Why you got to show me that, man?
Mental institution patients are taken out of hospitals and jails, and they're let into our country. That's weird. Who would want that policy? Who wants the men and women's sports policy? Who wants to quadruple your taxes? The whole thing is weird, and the way they do elections is weird. And no, they're the weird ones. But you know what it is? It's a soundbite. You've been watching it. Russia, 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 Ukraine, Ukraine, Ukraine. It's all a soundbite. And the press picks it up. Do you notice the evening news, every one of them talked, they introduced the word weird, and all of a sudden they're talking about weird. No, we're not weird people. We're actually just the opposite. We're right down the middle.
I don't know if you heard this yet, but a little bit earlier, Joe Biden, I don't know if Joe Biden knows anything. I think you kind of showed that when you knocked him out on June 27th and ended his political career. I know you saw me on Jesse Waters. I mean, we've never seen a knockout like that, talking about it. And I know you posed as he dropped out. But he was just talking about Russian hostages, and he said you didn't get Evan Gersovich back, even though Evan Gersovich didn't become a hostage until he became president. I want to let you hear that and hear what he said. I mean, his brain's mush. We know that, but I want to let you hear it.
President Trump has said repeatedly that he could have gotten the hostages out without giving anything in exchange. What do you say to that? What do you say to President Trump now, the former president?
Why didn't he do it when he was president?
Okay. I mean, how crazy is...
Dude, I love Donald Trump being like, Republicans are not the weird ones. It's the Democrats that are weird ones, which is why I, as a normal person, am spending my morning talking to Clay Travis and Buck Sexton about a Algerian boxer in the quarterfinals beating an Italian boxer, and we are talking about how she might have a penis in her pants. Okay, like that is not I'm running for president shit. Okay, that's insane. Like you can't. Like that's actually super stupid.
This.
Well, he's incompetent, and he was so adjudged by his own. If you take a look, his own counsel. If you look at the prosecutor, we call it a prosecutor. They call it a counsel, and he came out and he said, with respect to the documents case, he said essentially that he's incompetent. That was an interesting thing. He's incompetent to stand trial, but he's allowed to be president. That's a very interesting thing. Can't stand trial because he's grossly incompetent. But
fascinating.
No, I heard that. I heard he said this. Why didn't Trump get him out? And he was taken during that time. I got out 59 different people, 59, and I didn't pay money. Once you do that, these deals are going to happen more and more because the amount of things, including cash, that we give up is so astronomical. This is a big deal. And they allowed some really rough people out. You know that, right? And they did in the first case of Brittany Griner also. They allowed, what was he? The
Merchant of Death. They traded her for the Merchant of Death, which is maybe a worse trade than our friend Herschel
one
Walker
of the greatest,
back in
the greatest.
Trans people shouldn't perform in opposite sex competitions. Yeah, they shouldn't. They're not. trans women participate in the exact same is in a competition with cis women. Like, yeah. Ain't nobody out here being like, oh, a trans woman should go fight against a cis dude. You know what I mean?
Greatest arms dealer in the world, and look, these are rough deals. To make these deals, sometimes you have to be different. But we got out 59 without having to pay. I got people out of North Korea. You don't get tougher than that. And
last question.
Okay, I'm done with this. This just sucks. All right. I want to see the fallout from Trump's comments attacking Harris's race.
To serve on her campaign, to volunteer. So they're feeling very good about this. And the strategy, from what I hear from them, is let Trump be Trump. The more that the American people see of him doing this kind of stuff, the more they're reminded of why they don't like him.
Ashley, let's look back at the past to sort of widen this out here. President Trump did perform better than expected with black men in 2020. And that campaign would very much like to peel off a few more votes from the black community. How much does this hurt those efforts, though, in your opinion?
Well, I've always sort of felt like this was overhyped. The number of support among black men for Donald Trump is really been overhyped. It was never a real threat to someone like Kamala Harris. It was more of a threat to Joe Biden. But now that Kamala Harris is actually in the race, we're seeing their internal polls are showing that she's really invigorated the African-American base, where Joe Biden was bleeding support among the base. She's plus 45 against Donald Trump with the base. So the more and the more that he actually shows himself, the more and the more he insults her, the more he mispronounces her names, the more that he leans into really insult the entire black community, the more the momentum will start to create and galvanize behind Vice President Harris. And I will say, and it's not just among black people who are offended by the former president's treatment of her. So that's the other benefit that she has, that race and gender are working to her advantage in this particular race in a way that it never has before.
Ashley, I'm not black. Fact check. True. But I'd like your observations on the combative nature.
We still love you.
I'm glad we're good on that. I'd like your evaluation of the combative nature of the exchanges between former President Trump and Rachel Scott. That's playing in that room, but it's also playing in a broader American living room.
Bro, white people can never be normal. Like, I don't know why people are so, like, it's just so difficult for a white person to ever be normal about like black issues or just like being around black people in general. It's not even like, he's not even being racist or anything. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm not saying he's being racist. He's just being so cringe. Like, he just can't, I don't know.
Absolutely. I mean, there was a lot of frustration I heard from my reporter friends that were in the room, and that frustration and disappointment and how NABJ handled this spilled over into outside of that room. In fact, I got dozens and dozens of text messages about how disappointed they were that they provided the former president this platform to not only insult black journalists, but the black community, and to insult Kamala.
Hasanabi's race switching again. Are you with us or against us? Yes, dude. Whichever one allows you to subscribe at the top of the hour so you don't see a 3-minute ad break, okay? That's what I am. Because at the top of the hour, I'm serving ad breaks to everybody, okay? Black folks, white folks, brown folks, Asian folks. Everybody's getting a 3-minute ad break at the top of the hour. Unless you subscribe. Subscribe folks will not be seeing an ad break at the top of the hour. Here it is.
Kamala Harris as well. So, I mean, the way that I think people are processing this is, it's more of the same with Donald Trump. No one was surprised by this, but it's going to play to her advantage because she's going to be able to contrast and say, listen, which direction do we want to go in as a nation? Who are we as a nation? Are we what Donald Trump represents, which is division and hatred? Are we about solutions? Are we about unity? Are we about loving thy neighbor? That's the contrast she's going to continue to draw. So black women, wherein we were insulted by it, we're really even more dug in and motivated to go out and support Kamala Harris and make sure we take her across the finish line.
Ashley Etienne, we can feel your energy this morning. Thank you for joining us.
Senator Vance were at the border today. You just got done touring the border. Vice President Harris has contended that you and President Trump, former President Trump, had tanked the bipartisan border deal that would have provided a lot more funding to support the border. What is your response to that?
Well, look, the bipartisan border deal was actually a massive giveaway to illegal immigrants. It would not have solved any of the problems that Kamala Harris has caused. I mean, they came into the administration, they promised from day one that they would suspend deportations, that they would reinstate catch and release, that they would end remain in Mexico. They implemented these policies, and it had the intended effect of opening up the southern border. What happened is that Kamala Harris, who was the border czar, decided that this was not good politically, and so they tried to implement some new law that actually wouldn't have solved the underlying problem. They have the tools necessary. They just need to empower Border Patrol to tell people who want to come in illegally, you're not allowed to do that. They just need to use the authority that the border czar Kamala Harris has.
I want to ask you about the former president's comments yesterday to the National Association of Black Journalists, where he said that Vice President Harris is, quote, all of a sudden black. As a father of 3 biracial children, do those comments...
Oh my God. Dude, I wish they had this level of smoke for like Israel shit, dude. God damn it. This makes me more mad. Seeing them actually cook politicians like this on like domestic stuff where they look like assholes, especially when they hate them. And yeah, the media does hate Donald Trump. Let's be real. Okay. I wish they would do this for like Israel related shit. Could you imagine doing like real contentious adversarial journalism? This makes me so upset.
Does this give you pause at all?
They don't give me pause at all. Look, all he said is that Kamala Harris is a chameleon. She goes to Georgia 2 days ago. She was raised in Canada. She puts on a fake Southern accent. She is everything to everybody, and she pretends to be somebody different depending on which...
There's nothing funnier than this guy calling someone else a chameleon. It's just like, dude, you're literally the fakest motherfucker out there. You've invented new ways of being shitty to white people. Like, I don't even know how that's possible. Like, you invented a way to be racist to white people, but like specifically from Appalachia. It's crazy. You called Trump Hitler, dog, like 3 years ago. You're a tech bro, a hedge fund guy from Silicon Valley. You're Peter Thiel's blood boy. And now you put on a plaid shirt with the cowboy patterns and you walk the border to be like, oh, I'm such a yokel.
Which audience she's in front of. I think it's totally reasonable for the president to call that out, and that's all he did. I mean, look, she's running as a tough-on-crime prosecutor, even though she implemented open border policies. She's saying that she wants to support the police, yet she wanted to defund the police just 3 years ago. It's totally reasonable to call out the fact that she pretends to be somebody different depending on the audience she's talking to.
You used that word chameleon yesterday as well. You're someone who was an unabashed critic of the former president previously. Now you're his running mate. You're someone who have text messages out there now that say, I hate the police. Now yesterday you said, I back the blue. By your own standard, are you a chameleon?
Look, I criticized Donald Trump 10 years ago, and we've talked about it, and I've made a good argument to the American people about why I think he was a great president and why I think he deserves re-election. That's different than going to Georgia 2 days ago and putting on a fake Southern accent when you were raised in Canada. So I think it's totally reasonable to change your mind. Has Kamala Harris stood...
When you were raised in what? Was Kamala raised in Canada? I thought she was from Oakland. Oh, she went to high school in Canada?
Stood for a tough debate with you and explained why she wanted to ban fracking and now she doesn't, or why she wanted to defund the police and now she doesn't, or why she wanted to open the border but now she doesn't. It's reasonable to change your mind. It's not reasonable to run and hide from the media and not answer the American people's questions.
He was also asked yesterday if you were ready to be president on day one. He kind of dodged the question. What do you still have to do as his running mate to prove to him that you are ready to step into that role?
Well, I think Donald Trump was answering a political question, and he was answering it correctly. He said for years that who the vice president is doesn't really matter politically. Most Americans are voting either for Kamala Harris or for Donald Trump. They're not voting for the vice presidential nominee of either party.
Oh my God, he's so cooked. He's like, I'm a loser, but I promise I won't actually have a negative consequence on the ticket. I know I'm a loser. I know my place. I'm sorry. This is great. No, I promise that like all of the articles that keep coming out about like every Groyper podcast that I've been on, where I said things like we should assassinate women that don't bear 8 children, or that Personally, I think that we should do a second circumcision or whatever kind of weird shit that he's an advocate for. All of those sound bites are actually good. I promise I'm not going to cuck the campaign.
Look, I'm absolutely ready to be president on day one. I've been a businessman. I've been a United States Marine. I've been a senator. I can do the job, but politically, he's just right. People are voting for Donald Trump primarily.
So why are you out here today then if you aren't necessary to this process?
Well, I didn't say I was
Oh, bro, this guy is just ripping him, bro. Chill.
necessary to the process. I can certainly make an argument that borders are Kamala Harris has failed the American people, but I think ultimately they're going to be voting either for Kamala Harris or for Donald Trump.
Do you have a reaction to the news that just came out about the prisoner swap that will bring 2 Americans back home potentially?
Look, I think it's great news, at least what little we know. We certainly want these Americans to come back home. It was ridiculous that they were in prison to begin with, but we have to ask ourselves, why are they coming home? And I think it's because bad guys all over the world recognize Donald Trump's about to be back in office, so they're cleaning house. That's a good thing, and I think it's a testament to Donald Trump's strength.
You've explained at length your past criticism of the former president. I'm just curious, though, is there still an issue where you feel like you are on a different level than him, that you feel like you are hoping to sway him on if you were to become his vice president?
Look, my job as vice president will be to help implement the governing agenda, and if, God forbid, something happens, to step into the gap. But Donald Trump's very healthy. I think he's going to be a great president. He's going to be a great president for 4 years. But my job here is to help prosecute the case, let the American people know what Kamala Harris actually is, what she's actually done, and then when we get in the White House to actually help govern, that's what I'm going to focus on doing.
So there's not an issue where you two differ at all?
Look, certainly we're going to differ on issues from time to time, but my job is to provide counsel to the president in private and then try to help him govern and do everything we can to help him do that.
Got it.
Your reaction to the defense that you just heard from Senator Vance?
It's more coherent and logical and defensible than the stuff that Donald Trump was saying. It's also just not particularly responsive to the stuff that Donald Trump was saying. It is totally fair game to go after Kamala Harris for flip-flopping and changing her positions. I welcome a lot of her flip-flops. She's moving to the correct positions from the wrong positions. But Donald Trump went out there and said she's not black based upon this completely sort of retconned, manufactured past. You know, when Jim Clyburn said you have to pick a black woman, and Joe Biden said I'm going to pick a black woman, and then he picked Kamala Harris, no one said, wait a second, she's not black, she's Indian, right? I mean, like, Donald Trump didn't say that. Nobody said that. What Vance is doing fairly effectively there, I think, is changing the subject to something that's actually a defensible political argument rather than what Trump actually did.
It does. I mean, that argument did come at the expense of defending his own family's racial identity, and I'm not sure
how you're ideal.
Right? I don't know how you talk to your biracial children and tell them that you can't be all things to all people. You get to choose in a setting of black people that you can connect with that community using codes.
Can you unpack that infamous pig of Jill Stein with Putin, please? What? Why? Who gives a shit? Like, what were you about to vote for Jill Stein, but then you saw her sitting down with Putin and you're like, oh, I can't do it? Like, what? The infamous photo? I'm willing to bet that that infamous photo from like 2016, 95% of chat hasn't even seen this infamous photo. What is going on right now? I'm with her. I'm voting Jill Stein.
Switching, or you can wear a different set of clothes when you're with Indian American families and communities. Like that's a great way of actually being American.
If this is true.
Being able to express these multiple identities based on where you are. So even the argument of she tries to be all things to all people, again, make it about policy, but the identity piece makes her far more relatable. It also helps understand why the Trump administration was adamant about not counting identities and racial demographics within the census, and they were trying to pull that back because what the census shows is that America is a browning, it is a mixed race nation, that by 2040 that is going to be the majority of the country.
Uh-oh, don't say that now. People are gonna get scared.
And not confronting that is part of Trump's problem.
And I think what's interesting, to both your point, the back half of Senator Vance's argument there, or response there, was what every Republican would like to be talking about on a regular basis, including, I think, the co-campaign managers of former President Trump's operation. And yet, it's not like he's going to walk away from this. In fact, he's amplifying false attack on the vice president and a racial identity, posting on a social media account. This is a photo of Harris wearing a sari and a family photo today, writing, quote, "Your warmth, friendship, and love of your Indian heritage are very much appreciated." I mean, J.D. Vance has a photo of himself in traditional Indian wear at his wedding to his wife. I don't know, what are we doing here?
Right. No, I mean, it's a completely idiotic line of attack, but it also underscores the fact that the Trump campaign, having been given all the time in the world to prepare for the possibility of Harris as the Democratic nominee, apparently hasn't come up with a focused and disciplined line of attack to make against her. They can't decide, do they want to go after her as a flip-flopper? Do they want to go after her as too far left? Or now, do they want to go after her on, I think, the least promising possible grounds and the most morally odious, the way that she lives out her race?
But is that, I mean, if you watch their ads, and if you listen to what Senator Vance said in the back half of that response, like, it feels like they know, and they feel like they have a message that they can land on and really work after searching for a little bit. And it's not them. It's him.
Yeah, I mean, look, the ads have focused so far on immigration. I've seen some ads focus on the economy. A month ago, I think I even saw some ads, I think in North or South Carolina, targeting younger black men. So the campaign, from an operational perspective, I would argue they're doing everything right.
It's got the discrete issues.
It does. The candidate, the guy at the top.
Not just. It also doesn't have an overall narrative about the other candidate.
Well, that's right. Yeah. They're not drawing that contrast for that 4 or 5% of people in the middle. Some of those moderate-leaning R's, or some of those swing voters who may have voted for Republicans in the past, who are sort of on the fence. The more you racialize this, in my opinion, I think you push those individuals further away. You look at some of the metrics so far. Kamala Harris is slowly improving. It's about, 90-plus days to go. She can continue to steady increase those numbers. And I think if you're not drawing the contrast, you're not talking about the issues, the economy, immigration, cost of living from a Republican perspective, and begging that question about, well, why is she flip-flopping all over the place? You're not winning, Phil.
Right. You know, and one thing we've seen, when we see this with Vance, you can go out and say, well, actually, Trump meant to say this. We saw this all during
It's like 4 years of covering Congress.
And then Trump is just going to come back and say the thing he actually said again. And you're going to look more foolish for having made this kind of sophistical defense. Meanwhile, Kamala Harris, I think, loves this story. I don't think that she has any
her
difficulty.
entire answer was, come say it to my face, which plays into the whole debate her argument. Like that.
Asian people on CNN, oh my God. Yeah, this is the most Asian panel I've ever seen. They're eating good today. Like, they were like, let's put together the most Asian panel we can get together. Is this actually the most diverse panel that I've ever seen on CNN? Rise up, Asians.